Hi, everyone. I am Jessica from Magoosh, and today we are going to be doing an interview with Tony Lee, who works for Magoosh, but also does a ton of other stuff in education and also has worked in college admissions. So before we get started, just a reminder to, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. We are going to be doing a lot of videos over the next few months. Also, leave a comment if you have an idea of topics that you want to explore. So I wanted to introduce Tony. Hi, Tony.
Hello.
So you are, you do so many things in
Yes.
education, and I wanted to just learn a little bit more about your background. How'd you get started with admissions, and kind of what are you doing now?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in Santa Ana in Orange County in Southern California. And then so my parents didn't go to college. So I was a first generation college student, kind of had to figure a lot of things on my own. And eventually I applied for, I think, 40 something schools. I got into 30 of them. And for me, it was between UCI, UCLA, and Berkeley. And then so UCI and UCLA offered me full ride. Berkeley did not. But then my parents kept me at home all my whole life. So I wanted to get away. So that's why I chose Berkeley. So I went to Berkeley for my undergraduate years. And for me, what made me kind of choose Berkeley is as a senior, when you get accepted, law schools have like fly-in programs where you come in, visit the school, they'll pay for your flight, your food, your housing for the over the weekend. So for me, this group called REACH, they're the Asian Pacific Islander Recruitment and Retention Center. They flew me out. So then I came, I met a bunch of awesome people. And that, I think that weekend alone kind of changed my whole life because now that made me commit to Berkeley. So I went there. I think the first thing I did was I had to find this reach group and I say thank you and give back. So I came to meetings and then slowly I got involved. I applied to eventually be their coordinator. I ran their retention. And after that, I applied to be the programs director of Bridges, which is a bigger coalition. It's that multicultural coalition. So I did that and I ran a senior weekend. So I kind of read the same event that kind of brought me there. So we flew in over 500 students. So that was amazing. And then the entire time, I've always had a close relationship with the Office of Undergraduate Admissions there as well too. So we've been doing that. And then I kind of stay in touch. I know all the officers there still. We still talk all the time. We're still good. A lot of them are still my really good friends. So that's kind of how I got involved with admissions. And when I graduated, like, hey, you want to be a reader? So those who read applications, I was like, yeah. So that's ever since then. So I do a lot of other things, but that Berkeley side of me is always still there.
Wow, Tony, you
Mm-hmm.
applied to 40 schools. That
Yes.
is incredible. I
Uh-huh.
mean, just to think about the amount of time and effort involved, that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was wild.
so, so how long have you been a reader now for UC Berkeley?
It's been a few years. I can't remember exactly when it is, but I know a few years. And then it's really fun for me.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So I know questions that a lot of students and parents have
Sure.
are around college admissions, right? Like
Yeah.
admissions just seems to be kind of this black box. Like you
Mhm.
apply, go somewhere, somebody reads it, maybe it's you, and then a decision gets made, and it's a yes or a no or a wait list.
Mhm.
There's so much pressure and effort involved. So what are a few things that people don't know about what goes on in that black box?
Sure. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind and to like change your mindset about stuff, I think a lot of students think like schools want to reject me, so they're weeding me out kind of thing. Whereas if you actually know how the process works, it's actually the complete opposite, is that every college wants to take as many students as possible, right? The mindset is complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
We want you at our school, but we only have so many spots, so many space, right? So your job in your application is to demonstrate, hey, I deserve that spot, one of those few thousand spots at your school. So that's the logic. And a lot of students think the opposite, like the school wants to reject me for whatever reason. You're like, no, we try to look for reasons in your app to justify you coming into our school. So that's why, and then a lot, there's no, in terms of the application process, there's also no negative points or bad things you can do, right? So how in the admission field, it's either added value or neutral value. So nothing's bad, nothing's negative in a sense. If it's not, if it doesn't help too much, it's just neutral value. And we consider like neutral. But if it's amazing, it's added value for as a reader.
Hmm. So I'm sure a question that's on everyone's minds right now is around this pandemic. Everyone's living through this pandemic right now, and it's not possible right now to take the SAT or ACT as many times as you might want to get the score you want. Everyone's under a tremendous amount of stress. You know, some high schools have gone to pass fail instead of grades. So I'm sure, you know, a lot of students are concerned about how this is going to look on your application, on their applications. What are your thoughts around this kind of related to what you just said about neutral versus value add?
Sure. I think the biggest thing, like in my opinion, talking to a lot of students, I've been working with a bunch of students this past few months. And I think the biggest thing is this time at home per se is a nice divide between those who are going to stand out and those who are not going to stand out, right? Because a lot of students, so you think about in terms of admissions is, especially with the extracurriculars and the essays, that's going to play a lot bigger role, especially this upcoming year. And the mindset you have for that is then you're in school from 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock, right? You go sleep probably from, let's say 8 p.m. to like 6 a.m., right? But you still have that chunk in the middle. And then, so we had a few hours. So as from a reader is, how do you justify those hours between 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock before you go to bed? So that's why the extracurriculars kind of come in, the work experience, extra things that you do, right? Now, you basically are home the entire day. So you have more opportunity to go deeper in a certain subject or explore a new passion of yours kind of thing. So that's, for me personally, that's what I'm looking forward to. So I tell students like that, this is the time now, if you haven't done so already, like take, because I know, like, for example, the Ivy Leagues are offering free classes, right? You can take one of those to explore a passion. You can create a club now, and with technology now, you can do Zoom, like Zoom club meetings now. So back in our day, we didn't have that luxury to do it. So we had to go to school and meet with our friends to come and meet together. But now, like, because a lot of people have access to technology now, right? Like the opportunities are limitless now also. So I think right now is like, how do you make the most out of the situation given what it is? So instead of thinking negative, how can I make the best of the situation?
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have any other advice for really the class of 2021, so juniors right now, as they're thinking about kind of heading into summer? The fall seems a bit unknown.
Right.
What should juniors kind of be thinking at this moment?
Sure. So juniors, if you're applying to college, right? Application season's coming up again. That didn't really change too much. So application season's coming up in October, November, or depending what schools you apply to, September, October, November, December, right? Those months also, right? So there's still time to create the added value, right? Like, for example, one thing I know a bunch of schools went test optional. I have still recommended to all my students to still try to take one more test if you have the opportunity to, right? Because now that it's test optional, most students think I don't have to do it no more, right? Over the years, like I remember when I applied to Berkeley, the subject test was required, so everyone did it. But once now it's optional, when as a reader, I'm seeing a lot of students aren't doing it, and the students who are doing it, they're showing me like, hey, this is how I'm maximizing my opportunity. I'm doing these extra tests that you don't need, but I'm just doing it just to help out my application. So same thing with the SAT and the ACT. If you have the opportunity to take it in the fall time, especially that they're offering it online in the fall time as well too, right? I definitely take advantage of that and try to take at least one more time, because now it's optional. Any score is amazing now, because any score is better than a no score. So that's another way of thinking about that also.
Great. And what about about the summer? I know typically students might be thinking about internship or volunteer
Mm-hmm.
opportunities, or for our athletes, I think it's a pretty interesting time without
Right.
team sports being an opportunity. What are some different ways to think about the summer?
Sure. Like I think going back to the last point, like how are you gonna maximize the opportunity you have at home is what it is also because again we're in an ever-changing world. Like things are changing nonstop. Especially now, students are like you have to change. If you don't change, you're gonna fall behind. Right. For example, volunteering. A lot of students ask me about like, oh, I was set to volunteer so and so this summer. What do I do now? Right. There are lots of virtual volunteering opportunities as well too. So all the students who want to volunteer, I'm like, just Google virtual volunteering, local or virtual volunteering opportunities, virtual volunteering for high school students. And then I just did a quick search. There's a bunch out there. Right. So there's still opportunities for you to do whatever you want to do. Just find a different avenue of doing it. Like I know, for example, like a lot of the summer institutes or summer programs were canceled because you're not flying there, right? Actually, like on TikTok, a representative from Harvard reached out to me, and they're actually promoting a virtual summer program, summer research program. So there's opportunities there if you kind of go towards, if you look for it kind of thing. So, and now I highly recommend, right? Yeah, be very creative now and try, and Google is your best friend the next few months, right? How can I convert what I did in person to an online opportunity to at least maximize so showing that I'm trying my best regardless of the situation.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about TikTok
Yes.
because I have seen several videos of you, Coach Tony,
Yes.
and they're amazing. I highly
Mm-hmm.
recommend them.
Thank you.
Um, how did you get started there?
Yeah. So for me, I've always wanted to do college admissions work, help students with like getting into college. I've done it like unofficially the past few years. And my friend Kenny from college, he told me, "Hey, Tony, you're like perfect for TikTok." This is when TikTok was young last year, and I was like, "I'll download it. I'll see what it is." But I never did anything about it. Then my little sister, then my girlfriend's little sister, then they all like, you should do it. And then they start teaching me dances. And I was like, no, I can't, no, no. Right. And then eventually I just fell under pressure. I made one. And that kind of got a little big. And I made two. And that kind of got big. And I made, I think my fifth or sixth video, I made a video about Stanford University giving free tuition and housing if you make under a certain amount of money as a household income. And that got almost 1 million views also. So I'm like, so things just blew up and I was like, huh, let's take this a little more seriously kind of thing. So then I've been going on there a lot more, kind of just answering questions that students have. Like I post a video about whatever it is and they're like, oh, can you talk about this next? So then the next video is about the questions that they, so for me, like I love the instant feedback that the students do. And then I do a lot of dancing videos in there and I can't dance. So that's what makes it super fun for me. I think for me, that's one thing I regret most about college, not joining a dance group. That's like one of my like low key, like I want to do it, but TikTok has allowed me to pursue that passion of mine to be a
Oh my
wonderful dancer.
gosh. I totally disagree. You could totally dance. I've seen it.
Yes.
But I guess now, with all our time at home, a dance class is totally,
Yes.
could be totally possible.
Yes.
So, Tony, you are a person obviously with a ton of passion.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for folks who are kind of like looking for that passion,
Mm-hmm.
for high schoolers who maybe haven't found that spark yet? How do you
Sure.
find it?
Yeah. For me, it all came down to your why, I think. And for me personally, also like my story, I never found out my why until I actually went to college. So I did the whole process kind of backwards. But now I tell all my students, especially like, because college is hard, right? A lot, I'm really real with all my students. I like, all your teachers, all your counselors trying to get you to college, and it's hard, right? All your classes are hard. There's nobody to help remind you to study. So you're on your own. A lot of people don't have the study habits to do that. So they might feel overwhelmed a lot of times also. So you'll be a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of nights where you're like, why am I still here? And this and that. And for me, it hit me really hard in college because I think again, I want to get away from school, from home. But once I was away from home, I got super homesick. And I think it hit me. The reason why I do the things I did was for my parents, right? So my parents, they left their country, right? Because the war, they came here with nothing. They didn't know the language. They didn't know anything. And then so with me, like, and they couldn't really help with my homework. They tried their best, but a lot of times it was on my own. I felt like, why aren't you helping me? Because all my friends, their parents are helping them. Like their parents are helping them with the college process. My parents can't help me, this and that. But I realized that they work so hard my entire life to make sure like I have a place to sleep. I have food always for me to eat, this and that too. And then for me, I just want to give back to them. So I think once I realized that I'm here in college to succeed, right? Because I want to provide a future for my parents. I want to make sure they're taken care of, anything they want, kind of thing. Like I owe them my whole entire life, kind of thing, being here. So for me, it's coming down to figuring out your why. Like, why are you even doing this? Because college is hard. It's not easy, right? If you can ask any college student, college is hard, right? And but you need something kind of push you, even though it's hard. And for me, that's figuring out your why. And for me personally, it's my parents. So my parents is the reason why. So for anyone not knowing what you want to do, you just gotta think hard. Like, why are you doing? Like, why are you studying so hard for in high school? A lot of students this week are taking the AP test. I'm like, why are you studying so hard for this test? Right? And because it comes down to they have a secret reason, whatever it is, that's pushing them to do really well in school. So the biggest thing is figuring out your why, and everything else comes super simple after that.
Awesome. Thank you for your words of wisdom, and thanks
Yeah.
for taking your time today to speak
Yeah,
with
of
us.
course.
Okay, follow Coach Tony on TikTok.
Yes.
Leave a comment if you have other questions, and we'll make more videos. And yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.
Bye.